Connecting people and sharing experiences. This is the Retirement Years Podcast. Your hosts are Mary Ellen French and Dave Wing.
Hi there, I'm Mary Ellen.
And I'm Dave, and today we're providing listeners with a review of Season 4. We'll look back on our discussions about the types of transitions we face as older adults and retirees, and some of the supports that are out there for us during these transitions. We'll also be sharing a sneak peek at what Mary Ellen and I are planning for Season 5.
So we started this season acknowledging that we had been on more than a bit of a hiatus. And we took the opportunity in that first episode to share with listeners what we'd been up to in our lives since wrapping Season 3. And my siblings joined us for a conversation about the passing of our mom and what it was like to watch her transition from life to death, and what it's been like for us as we transition or deal with the transition from being adult children to adult orphans.
Yeah, and I know that's a notion not many people think about, but when you have your quietest moments and you think, oh, and for people who think, well, I don't think it really impacted me. If they've lost both their parents, I bet they could say the number of times they did something that they would have liked to have told them, or saw something they wish they could have seen, or did something that they knew that they wouldn't approve of. Maybe it's the most common way I remember my parents, but I'm trying, Mom and Dad. I'm trying.
Right.
In episode 2. We talked with Debbie Stanley, and she was a wonderful guest, and she talked to us about estate planning and the importance of being organized for the sake of your family and for the forgotten person, that executor that you named. Yeah. Because if you're a bit organized, that would be very helpful. As Debbie pointed out, the role of executor, or as we call it in Canada, estate administrator, can be very time-consuming and very complex. And there's no training. You just step into it. But if you visit the site at ETP Canada, you can see that there is some information there to help an executor prepare for that role. You can hire her firm to help you, or you can hire her firm to handle all of the estate administration. And I think some professional help in estate administration would be money well spent.
Yeah, she also has that really great resource on her website for setting up a death binder. Yeah, and so I am declaring here to all of our listeners and to you that I will have a death binder at least started by the time Season 5 launches.
That's a big commitment. And
I know.
I think it would be counterproductive to swear your life on it. Just saying.
Yeah, no, not doing that, but I will have it started. So at episode 3, we talked with Megan Flindle, and Megan is the executive director at a local food bank. And that was really, really eye-opening for us, right? To hear some of the stats that she shared. And really, we did this because some listeners had written to us and said, I think this might be something that you want to share on the podcast. So if for anybody who didn't catch that episode, I'll just highlight a couple of things. And one of them was that the section or sector of the population that is using food banks, the sector that's increasing the most is older adults, right? And especially older adults on a fixed income, because the income is fixed, but the expenses continue to rise. And so, the numbers of seniors that are accessing food banks, that's the biggest area of growth. And I was shocked to find out that I think it was, let me check my notes. I think, 1 in 5 people, so 20% of people who access a food bank are working.
Yes.
They're employed.
Yep.
Right? Like that just speaks to the state of our economy and how expensive the cost of living is right now, right? She also touched on the fact that really food banks don't run without volunteers. And that's something we've talked about on the podcast in different episodes. The incredible value that you get from volunteering in your community. And certainly food banks are one place that rely exclusively really on volunteers to keep them running. So, you know, whether or not you need to use a food bank or whether or not you know someone who needs to use a food bank, if you've got any time to donate uh, to a food bank in your community, well worth it. Lots of people rely on it.
Um, I know they would like to put every penny they can into obviously food to
Yeah.
have that available.
Yeah.
So the volunteers help alleviate that cost for sure. Turning to episode 4, we
Mhm.
spoke with Janine Bryant, again, someone very, very dynamic. She's the CEO of Changing Spaces SRS, and she spoke about how her business can help one transition to a right-sized living space. Not downsizing, because that
No.
does sound a little negative, I suppose, but the right size for you. And
Yeah.
one of the key things she discussed was how to develop the ability to identify the right or best stuff to keep.
Hmm.
And that's very hard to do on your own or
Hmm.
with family, if you're doing it for yourself or for someone who's passed. And she further pointed out that a third party, a professional like herself, can help with that and help provide
Hmm.
support on what to do with your emotional attachment to stuff. And we all
Yeah.
have it. And
Yeah.
it's, you can show something that you're proud of, and someone else would look at it and go, I don't get it. But to you, it's important. Some of those things, if you're dealing with your own or again someone who's passed in your life, baby clothes, holiday decorations. I remember she mentioned books. I'm guilty of that one. I like to buy books more than read them, apparently. And those items outlive their usefulness, and
Yeah.
yet they're hard to part with.
Yeah.
And Janine referred to these as emotional clutter. That's what it brings to your life. Not
Yeah.
just clutter, but emotionally as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah.
she made an excellent point when she said one has to realize that keeping stuff, too much stuff, isn't it? That doesn't show how much you love them or how much you honor
Mm.
them. It's it's your memories that matter and a few
Yeah.
key things. And again,
Yeah.
going through and finding those things that to keep that aren't going to have a burden on your living space.
Yeah.
We learned it's important always, and we've talked about this in many situations, to have those conversations early and often about
Yeah.
death
Yeah.
or transitions like downsizing or right
Yeah.
sizing.
Yeah.
And it's much easier, of course, to do that before someone has passed.
Yes.
They are dying. And if you've had those conversations, have something written down, whatever is your way to keep records, I we can't say strongly enough to
Yeah.
consider doing that. Small
Yeah.
steps, just
Yeah.
normalize the conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So episode 5 was Colleen Kennedy, and Colleen not only transitioned from working to being retired, but she also transitioned to a whole new country to live in.
Yeah,
And so talking with Colleen was so interesting because she also mentioned, as our previous guest had done, about the importance of right sizing. She had, I think, 2 trunks
yeah,
that she was able to take with her. So she had to be really selective about what she was going to take, right? The necessary items, but also a few things that were key in terms of holding memories for her, right? Just a tangible, something small but tangible to that she would associate with, her family,
yeah.
her kids, whatever. Yeah. Um, so it was fascinating talking to her. Yeah. Really enjoyed that one. And the other thing that she talked about that I really it struck me that I sort of took to heart was when you're deciding what country to move to, you really want to look at who you are.
Right,
And are you a good fit for that country? It's not just, is that country a good fit for you?
right.
It's, are you a good fit for that country? Like, how are you going to be a contribution in that new community? Do you have something to contribute?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I thought that was an important point.
And I liked how she said too that don't expect the country to change for you. You had certain
No.
expectations and they aren't met there, then perhaps you didn't choose wisely. And
Yeah.
that's good advice.
Yeah.
Um, Moving on to our 6th episode of the season, we turned our attention to focus on the transition from parenting your children to being the parent of an emerging adult. And
Mhm.
that can be very difficult. I you may make the argument that transitioning to being the parent of a teenager might be the most difficult because of what they've become. But in seeing your new role, where you don't have to parent them, you have to shift what you mean to them. And we spoke with Jill Tillman, and she came across our interest from her book that she wrote, Pour the Wine. We're talking about our adult children again.
Hmm.
And now we look at who are we now as parents of emerging adults or adult children, and who are these children now as emerging adults. And making that shift in your mind is not always easy because we loved our role as parents. That's why we got into it
Yeah.
in most cases. Um, Jill stressed that the importance of you have to know yourself first.
Hmm.
So when you come into realizing, okay, I have a new relationship with my children. So what am I coming in? What are my biases? What are my experiences? And am I unfairly applying those to these other adults? Because the times have changed, and that's for sure. And so we think there are certain hallmarks or times where they should be transitioning on steps like we did,
Hmm.
yet their reality is different. So if you can step back and start seeing how you fit into that. And I think regardless of our age, we need to do that in any relationship, most importantly with our children.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the end of Jill's book, a very important resource, she shared tools and strategies for navigating that transition
Hmm.
and that stage of parenting. So really good. And you've read it cover to cover and you enjoyed it.
Oh
You
yeah.
found it
I loved
an
it.
easy read and not
So easy.
it's not, dictating what you should do. It's
No.
offering advice from others who have been there, done that.
Yeah, and lots of anecdotes from not just from Jill's experience as a parent of adult children, but also from stories that she collected from people that she would share a glass of wine with,
Yeah.
or have a coffee with. And so I think she called it the Sisterhood of Mothers or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was really what supported her through her experience of transitioning into being all of a sudden what felt like being all of a sudden the parent of adult children, and realizing that's a whole different relationship than being the parent of teenagers or children.
Yeah.
Yeah. And her advice, like you said, about knowing yourself really echoed what Colleen had said in the previous episode, right? You got to know who you are and are you a good fit? So
Yeah.
yeah. So episode 7, we spoke with a certified hypnotherapist, Cassandra McLean. And Cassandra specializes in helping people transition from in a healthy way from being married to being divorced,
Mhm.
and really thriving, right? Like creating a whole new outlook, a whole new identity for themselves. Um, so that, there is you really get the opportunity to deal with the grief, deal with the loss, and begin to look forward to creating newly out of the work that Cassandra does, and which I thought was very, very cool. And really, I think one of the reasons we invited Cassandra on as a guest is because you and I uh, really didn't know a whole lot about
Yep.
hypnotherapy, right?
Yep.
And I dare say that unless you've had the opportunity to work with a hypnotherapist, most people don't necessarily know what hypnotherapy is, and don't get the value that it has, and the
Yeah.
speed with which it can work for people, right? Yeah.
That's
So
something she stressed. Yeah. How
yeah,
quickly you can deal with an issue.
yeah. I also forgot to mention that Cassandra McLean, hypnotherapist, generously offered listeners a discount
Right.
on hypnotherapy services.
Okay.
Yeah. So if listeners go to mcleanhypnotherapy.com, when they go to book an appointment, if they put something in the notes about having heard about Cassandra on the Retirement Years podcast, Cassandra has offered a discount, which was really, really generous of her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in episode 8, we spoke with Kiki Keskinen. And Kiki, of course, had been a guest in a previous season where she talked about Witch School Canada. And she has started a new adventure called Sage Advice. And so we talked with her about that. It's kind of like a Dear Abby idea, right?
Yep.
So she has an intro session with somebody. It's to the point, and so like somebody presents with something that they would like some advice on. And Kiki said that really the majority of the time, the answers lie in whatever the person says after they tell her this is the problem that they're presenting. Like
Yep.
it really is sage advice. And then people have the option of saying, oh, I'm good to go now, or yeah, I'd like you to help me implement and execute, whatever plan we've just come up with in this introductory meeting. So I thought that was very cool. And some of the transitions that people show up with as things that they're dealing with, especially if they're older adults. Number one is being in that sandwich
Yeah.
generation between aging parents
Yeah.
and having kids of their own who are becoming young adults, perhaps. And the other one that comes up with clients for her is grandparents who are not knowing how to help their adult children who are having difficulty communicating with their teenagers.
Right.
Right. And so that was really interesting when she shared some of those stories and some of the solutions there. So yeah.
Well, and it's how to help in that situation without meddling.
Right.
That's for funny sitcoms, but not so funny
No.
in real life for sure.
No.
In episode 9, we introduced listeners to Jen Rovette, a certified retirement coach, and she discussed the ways a retirement coach can help you manage the transition from working to retirement. And she helps structure your plan sitting down and using your goals as and values of how does that fit into your new retired life now? What can you do to continue along those lines now that you're not going to be working? And she pointed out a retirement coach can help you transfer things from your working life. And we've heard this before, this advice. Take the things you enjoyed into your retired life and make them enjoyable. And you're the boss. So it would make sense that they'll be more enjoyable to you now, whatever that happened to be you did at work. Jennifer told us the many ways one can benefit from working with a retirement coach, some pointers on how to find the right person. She pointed out you can contact 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, until you get a good vibe, you find the right one, and that's who you should work with. And reaching out to one is easy online, as she pointed as well. And you'll find that one. And it's worth the time even to start and see how you like it. So thank you to Jennifer who came by, and her contact info is available in the episode and on our website. And finally, episode 10, we spoke with Rick Fernandez, a really good guy. We really enjoyed talking to him, from Junko Brewing Company in Upper New York State, who turned 2 of his hobbies into a business in retirement. And it's a good thing he has those skills, because he probably uses them endlessly in having a brew pub open during the warm season. In addition to telling us about how he turned his hobby or passion into a business, Rick gave some sage advice around things you need to consider before you turn that hobby or passion into a business. And at the top of that list was simply do your research.
Yeah.
Find out costs, rules in the area, all those things. And then finally take it slow at first. Don't bite off more, because you're not an expert yet because you haven't started.
No.
So yeah, it was both educational and leads us to planning a trip.
It does lead us to planning a trip. And it's interesting, right, that he really emphasized research, and that was something that Colleen had emphasized back in episode 5, was the importance of doing your research before you make before you make any of these big transitions.
Yeah.
Right. So you've mentioned that that there's a road trip in the offing. I have committed to my husband. This is my second promise in this episode.
Yeah.
I've committed to my husband that we're going to go to see Junko Brewing Company that's in Oswego, New York, this summer. And I'm looking forward to meeting Rick and meeting his wife and trying out some of their delicious craft beers.
You can probably bring some back for anyone you know. Probably.
Well, I thought I might. I thought I might. So, Dave, I know we say this every season, but really, we met so many interesting people again this season. And we are so grateful to all of our guests for generously giving of their time and their talents and their thoughts and their hard-earned wisdom. We covered a lot of types of transitions. That was the theme. The theme of this season was transitions. We started with dealing with the death of a parent, and we looked at moving to a new country, becoming single as a result of a divorce, figuring out how to communicate with our adult children, lots and lots of transitions. It's a really good thing that we are older and wiser, given all of the transitions that we seem to move through as older adults.
Amen. That's for sure. Just before we go to the next transition, I was thinking about this as we recorded this episode. So this will be a total surprise for Mary Ellen as well. There's a lot going on in the world.
Yeah.
And we hope that if, listening to our podcast brings a little bright spark for you, but be proactive and occupy your mind, occupy yourself with something other than doom scrolling, and get out there with people, loved ones. And because we want you back in the fall for season 5 as well. And we hope you feel well. So don't let everything get you down. Everything changes. Everything goes through a transition, and we'll come out the other side.
It does.
Okay, enough of that. So now, Mary Ellen, another transition. We look ahead to season 5. And we are turning our attention to the planning of season 5. As you mentioned, we've already met lots of people, and we have lots of listeners who say, hey, how about this topic? Or here's someone you could interview. And we have people who are interesting to interview reaching out and saying, we'd love to be on your podcast. So we'll do our best to consider and look up and talk with all of them if we can. And we do love hearing from listeners and your suggestions and topics. And so keep them coming. You're the reason we do what we do.
It's true. It's true. And of course, Dave, we're going to continue to have fun in season 5 because we do love co-creating and co-producing this podcast. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited for season 5 and all of the other adventures that are on the horizon in 2025 that we will say more about when that season launches.
Absolutely. And as always, thank you for listening. And be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Retirement Years podcast on your favorite social media platform to stay up to date on the launch of season 5. That'll be coming in the fall of 2025. And we hope you have a great summer. So until next season, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mary Ellen. Stay well.
For additional content, visit our website or follow us on Twitter at Retirement Years and on Instagram and Facebook at the Retirement Years Podcast. Our email address is theretirementyearspodcast@gmail.com.